A crash landing. The vastness of space is often a place of beauty and wonder, but for Daniel, it had become a nightmare. As the chief navigator aboard the Odyssey, a sleek spacecraft designed for deep space exploration, he had seen many extraordinary sights. But nothing could have prepared him for the catastrophe that unfolded that fateful day. It had started as a routine mission to chart the unexplored regions of the galaxy, but when Daniel entered the uncharted asteroid field, everything went awry. The ship's systems hummed and beeped, an orchestra of warning signals that echoed in the cockpit. He was focused, his hands steady on the controls, but the asteroids were relentless. One moment, he was skillfully maneuvering through the rocky labyrinth, and the next, a massive asteroid collided with the Odyssey, sending it spiraling into the depths of the unknown. "Brace for impact," he yelled, his heart racing as he fought to regain control. The ship bucked violently, alarms blaring as the hull groaned under the strain. The last thing he remembered was the blinding flash of lights as the ship's systems failed, plunging him into darkness. When Daniel regained consciousness, he found himself sprawled on the cold, damp ground amidst the smoking wreckage of his ship. The air was thick with an earthy aroma, and the distant sounds of wildlife echoed around him. He groaned, pushing himself up with effort, his flight suit covered in soot and grime. The realization that he was alive filled him with a fleeting sense of relief, but that was quickly overshadowed by the grim reality of his situation. "Just great," he muttered, surveying the wreckage. The ship was a total loss, a twisted heap of metal and shattered dreams. He had no way to call for help, no way to escape this alien world. Pushing himself to his feet, Daniel took a deep breath, trying to shake off the disorientation. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the towering bioluminescent trees surrounding the crash site, he felt a shiver run down his spine. The flora glowed with an ethereal light, illuminating the clearing with hues of blue and green. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Daniel had read about planets like this in his training, worlds filled with exotic vegetation and strange life forms, but experiencing it firsthand was something entirely different. A rustling sound from the nearby underbrush drew his attention. Daniel tensed, his instincts kicking in as he reached for the blaster holstered at his hip. "Hello," he called out, his voice steady despite the anxiety coiling in his stomach. "Is anyone there?" The underbrush parted, and to Daniel's shock, a figure stepped out. It was a woman, or at least a humanoid figure, with striking blue skin that shimmered like the stars above. Her features were undeniably alien, with sharp cheekbones and large, expressive eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. She moved with a grace that captivated him, but the piercing gaze she fixed upon him sent a rush of adrenaline through his veins. "Welcome, stranger," she said, her voice melodic and otherworldly. "I am Inta, leader of the Oran. What brings you to our world?" Daniel blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. Hi there," he managed to stammer, still trying to comprehend the reality before him. "I come in peace. My ship, it crashed." Inta tilted her head, studying him with curiosity. "Your ship is in ruins," she observed, a hint of amusement in her voice. "You are fortunate to have survived." "Yeah, fortunate," Daniel replied dryly, brushing debris off his flight suit. As more figures emerged from the shadows, he realized they were all women, each one stunningly attractive and radiating an aura of confidence. They moved closer, their expressions a mix of intrigue and caution. "Ladies," he said, raising a hand in a friendly wave, "there wouldn't happen to be an intergalactic repair shop nearby, would there?" Inta smiled, a playful glint in her eyes. "I'm afraid not, traveler, but perhaps we can assist you in other ways." Daniel felt a jolt of apprehension. Her tone, though inviting, hinted at something deeper, a need, a hunger. He cleared his throat, trying to maintain his composure. "Right, well, I appreciate that. I'm Daniel, by the way, interstellar explorer extraordinaire, and apparently crash test dummy." A ripple of laughter passed through the group of Oran women, their laughter light and melodic. Inter's eyes sparkled with interest. An explorer? How fascinating. We rarely receive visitors to our world. Most who arrive flee quickly. Flee? Daniel asked, raising an eyebrow. Why would they do that? Inter exchanged glances with her companions, a shadow passing over her face. Perhaps it would be best if we discuss this somewhere more comfortable. Will you join us in our village? He hesitated, weighing his options. Following a group of mysterious aliens into their lair was likely not the smartest move, yet he was stranded on an alien planet with no way out. How much worse could it get? Lead the way, Daniel said with a grin, attempting to mask his unease. As they trekked through the bioluminescent forest, he couldn't help but be captivated by Inter. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her blue skin glowing softly in the dim light. Daniel found himself lost in thought, trying to understand the strange allure of this alien woman. What exactly did you mean about visitors fleeing? He asked casually, hoping to gather more information. Inter glanced back at him, her expression playful. Let's just say that our dietary needs can be rather intimidating to outsiders. Daniel nearly tripped over a root, his heart racing. Dietary needs? You're not going to eat me, are you? Inter laughed, the sound like tinkling bells. Not in the way you're thinking, no. Before he could ask more, they emerged into a clearing. Daniel's eyes widened at the sight before him. The Oran village was unlike anything he had ever seen. The structures resembled giant flowers and bioluminescent mushrooms, their colors vibrant against the night sky. In the center of the village stood a large, pulsating crystal, bathing everything in a soft blue glow. Welcome to our home, Inter said, gesturing grandly as they entered the village. As they walked, Daniel couldn't shake the odd feeling that something was off. Where are all the men? He asked, curiosity overriding caution. A shadow passed over Inter's face. There are no men here, not anymore. His instincts flared, and his hand instinctively moved toward his blaster. What happened to them? It's complicated, she replied, her voice low. Come, let us sit, and I will explain. Inter led him to a circular structure that seemed to serve as a communal gathering place. As they settled onto cushions made from a spunky plant material, Daniel noticed the other Oran women eyeing him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. All right, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm all ears. What's the deal with this place? Inter leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. Our species survives on sexual energy, Daniel. We require it to live, just as you require food and water. Daniel blinked, his mind racing to process the revelation. I'm sorry, what now? The men of our world could not sustain us, Inter continued. They fled, fearing we would drain them completely. And now, her voice trailed off, filled with a mixture of desperation and sorrow. Now our people are slowly starving. Daniel's heart raced. So you're saying you're like energy vampires? Inter tilted her head, confusion flickering across her face. I'm not familiar with that term, but perhaps it's an apt comparison. Right, he said, running a hand through his hair. And let me guess, I look like a walking all-you-can-eat buffet to you ladies. A predatory grin spread across Inter's face. Oh, you have no idea. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, Daniel shifted in his seat. Look, I'm flattered, really, but I'm not sure I'm ready to be someone's dinner, no matter how attractive the diners might be. Inter's expression softened. We would never force you, Daniel, but perhaps we could come to some sort of arrangement. You need repairs for your ship. We need energy to survive. Surely there's a mutually beneficial solution. Daniel's mouth went dry as he considered the implications of her words. I'll have to think about that. Inter nodded, understanding the weight of his decision. Of course. In the meantime, why don't I show you around our village? There's much to learn about our culture. As they stood, Inter brushed her hand against Daniel's arm. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them, and he stumbled slightly, caught off guard. Careful, Inter purred. We wouldn't want you to fall unless it's for me. Daniel let out a nervous laugh. Oh boy, something tells me this is going to be one hell of a cultural exchange program. As they toured the village, Daniel found himself fascinated and bewildered by Oran customs. At one point, a group of women began performing an elaborate dance, their movements fluid and captivating. Is this some kind of traditional ceremony? Daniel asked, watching with keen interest. Inter nodded. Yes, it's a ritual dance meant to entice potential mates. Suddenly, one of the dancers lunged toward him, and Daniel instinctively dropped into a fighting stance. Whoa there, I don't want any trouble. The Oran women burst into laughter, and Inter placed a calming hand on his arm, sending another spark of energy through him. Peace, Daniel, she said, amusement clear in her voice. It's not an attack. Daniel felt his face flush with embarrassment. Oh well, don't I feel like an idiot? Inter smiled, her eyes sparkling with mirth. On the contrary, your quick reflexes are quite impressive. As the tour continued, Daniel found himself increasingly drawn to Inter. Her intelligence and wit matched her physical beauty, and he couldn't help but be charmed by her playful flirtations. But as night fell and they returned to the central crystal, he noticed a change in her demeanor. Her face grew serious as she gazed at the pulsating light. Daniel, she said softly, I haven't been entirely truthful with you. He tensed, sensing the gravity in her tone. What do you mean? Inter turned to face him, her eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and determination. Our situation is far more dire than I let on. This crystal, it's the heart of our civilization. It's dying. As her words hung in the air, Daniel realized that his journey on this alien planet was just beginning, and the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. The heart of the matter. As the gentle hum of the pulsating crystal filled the air, Daniel's mind reeled from the weight of Inter's revelation. The heart of the Oran civilization was dying, and without it, the very essence of their existence was at risk. The crystal was not just a source of light, it was their lifeblood, the key to their survival. What do you mean it's dying? Daniel asked, his voice steady despite the rising tension in his chest. Inter took a deep breath, her luminous blue skin shimmering in the crystal's glow. The crystal is our life source, our connection to the energy we need to thrive. When the men fled, we lost the vital energy we once shared with them. We have been trying to sustain the crystal, but it is weakening. If we cannot restore its power, we will all perish. Daniel felt a pang of sympathy for the Oran women. They were vibrant and full of life, yet he could sense the underlying desperation in Inter's voice. Is there anything I can do to help? He asked, feeling a strange sense of determination swell within him. Inter's eyes widened, hope flickering like a flame. You would do that for us, for me? I didn't crash here just to become dinner, Daniel replied, attempting to lighten the mood. I'm an explorer. I can help you find a solution. A radiant smile broke across Inter's face, and for a moment, the weight of their predicament seemed to lift. Your willingness to help is truly remarkable, Daniel. We will need to gather the village and discuss our options. As they walked back toward the gathering area, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into a pivotal moment. He was a stranger in this world, yet he felt an undeniable connection to the Oran and their plight. If he could help them, perhaps he could also help himself. Upon reaching the center of the village, Daniel stood before a crowd of Oran women, each one looking at him with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Their vibrant eyes reflected the flickering light of the crystal, and he felt their anticipation weighing heavily upon him. Everyone, this is Daniel, Inter announced, her voice resonating with authority. He has offered to help us in our time of need. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a mixture of curiosity and doubt. Some women exchanged glances, while others seemed to lean in closer, eager to hear what this outsider had to say. Daniel cleared his throat, feeling the pressure of their collective gaze. I may not be from your world, he began, but I've faced challenges before. Together, we can find a way to restore the crystal's energy and ensure the survival of your people." "What do you suggest?" an elder Oran woman asked, stepping forward. Her demeanor was stern, and Daniel could sense the weight of tradition behind her words. "I need to learn more about your customs and your connection to this crystal," he replied, determination settling in his chest. "What do you know about its energy source? Can we replenish it somehow?" The elder nodded slowly, her expression softening. "We draw energy from our bonds with one another, from the connections we create. When the men left, so did the energy we shared with them. We must find a way to restore balance." Inter added, "There are ancient texts, rituals that speak of ways to harness energy from the crystal. We can explore those methods together." Daniel nodded, feeling a spark of hope igniting within him. "Let's start by gathering all the knowledge you have about this crystal and your past practices. We need to understand what we're dealing with." The women began to disperse, some heading off to collect scrolls and artifacts, while others stayed behind to discuss the next steps. Daniel felt Inta's eyes on him, a mixture of admiration and curiosity in her gaze. "Thank you, Daniel," she said softly as they walked. "You have given us hope when we needed it most." "Just doing what I can," he replied, trying to mask the warmth creeping into his cheeks. "I'm not ready to be a snack just yet." Inta laughed lightly, and for a moment, the tension that had filled the air dissipated. But as the Oran women returned with scrolls and texts, Daniel felt the gravity of their situation settle back in. They gathered around the central crystal, its soft glow illuminating their faces as they began to pore over the ancient texts. The symbols and drawings depicted rituals, energy exchanges, and a deep connection to the crystal that resonated with their very essence. Hours passed as they delved into the knowledge of the past, Daniel absorbing the information like a sponge. He learned about the Oran's history, their reliance on their male counterparts for energy, and how their society had thrived in harmony before the imbalance struck. The scrolls described ceremonies filled with music and dance, where energy was shared in joyous union, creating a bond that nourished both the crystal and the Oran people. "Here," one of the women exclaimed, pointing to a section in the scroll. "This speaks of a ceremony to renew our bond with the crystal. It requires the participation of one from outside our tribe." Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. "Me?" "Yes," Inta confirmed, her voice steady. "It is said that an outsider can rekindle the crystal's energy through a sacred exchange. You have the potential to restore balance." Daniel's heart raced at the thought. What exactly does that entail? Inta leaned closer, her expression earnest. "It involves a ritual that binds you to our energy and the crystal. You will need to connect with both the women of our tribe and the crystal itself. It's a powerful and intimate process, but it could save us." His mind raced with possibilities. "Intimate," Daniel echoed, his voice tinged with surprise. Inta nodded, her expression unwavering. "Yes, it requires trust and mutual consent. You must be willing to open yourself to our energy and connect deeply with us." Daniel's heart raced, not just from fear, but from a strange thrill. He had come to this alien world hoping to survive, and now he found himself in the middle of a potential salvation, not just for the Oran but for himself as well. He felt an undeniable pull toward Inta, a magnetic connection that made the idea of the ritual both terrifying and exciting. "I'm willing to try," he said, looking Inta in the eye. "But we need to ensure that everyone is on board with this." Inta smiled, a glimmer of relief washing over her. "Your bravery is admirable, Daniel. We will gather the village and prepare for the ritual. You will not be alone in this." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the village, the Oran women moved with purpose, gathering ceremonial items and preparing for the evening's gathering. Daniel felt the atmosphere shift. A mix of hope and apprehension hung in the air. While the women prepared, Daniel wandered through the village, taking in the vibrant life surrounding him. The bioluminescent plants swayed gently in the evening breeze, their colors shifting in mesmerizing patterns. He could hear the soft sounds of laughter and music as the women began to practice the dances that had once been integral to their culture. It was a world unlike anything he had ever experienced. The Oran women were fierce yet nurturing, intelligent and captivating. Daniel found himself drawn to them, particularly to Inta. Her presence was commanding, yet she had a warmth that made him feel safe. As the evening deepened, the village square filled with the vibrant energy of the Oran women. They wore garments made from the softest materials, flowing and colorful, adorned with shimmering decorations that caught the light. Daniel felt a rush of excitement mixed with nerves as he prepared for what was to come. Inta stood beside him, her blue skin glowing softly in the dim light. "Are you ready, Daniel?" she asked, her voice soothing yet filled with anticipation. "I think so," he replied, feeling a knot of apprehension in his stomach. "But I'll admit I have no idea what to expect." "Trust in the process," Inta encouraged, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "You will be guided by the energy we create together. It will be powerful." As the ritual commenced, the Oran women formed a circle around the pulsating crystal, their voices rising in a melodic chant that resonated deep within Daniel's core. He felt a shift in the air, a palpable energy that coursed through the gathering. "Close your eyes," Inta instructed softly. "Feel the energy of the crystal. Allow it to connect with you." Daniel obeyed, closing his eyes and focusing on the rhythmic pulse of the crystal. With each beat, he felt the energy grow stronger, filling the space around him. The Oran women began to dance, their movements fluid and hypnotic, weaving a tapestry of light and sound that enveloped him. As he tuned into the energy, Daniel felt a rush of warmth spread through him. It was as if the crystal was calling to him, reaching out to forge a connection. He opened himself to the sensation, letting the energy flow through him, mingling with the Oran's vibrant presence. Inta's voice rose above the others, guiding him deeper into the ritual. "Let the energy flow freely, Daniel. Embrace it. Trust us." The chant intensified, and Daniel felt the world around him fade away. He was no longer just a man from another planet. He was a part of something greater, a living connection between two worlds. As the dance continued, he sensed the energy intertwining, pulling him into a collective consciousness that transcended individuality. The pulsating crystal glowed brighter, its light illuminating the night sky, casting a brilliant aura over the village. In that moment, Daniel understood the power of unity and trust. Together, they could rekindle the heart of the Oran civilization, and in doing so, he found a sense of belonging he never expected to discover. As the ritual reached its climax, Daniel and the Oran women became one with the crystal's energy, forging a bond that would change their destinies forever. The awakening. As the radiant wave of light emanated from the pulsating crystal, Daniel felt himself lifted from the confines of reality, his senses heightened to an extraordinary degree. The air around him crackled with energy, and the soft glow of the bioluminescent plants became a kaleidoscope of color that swirled and danced in time with the Oran's ritual. He was no longer just an outsider in this alien world. He was becoming part of something far greater, a living tapestry of energy and connection that transcended space and time. With his eyes closed, Daniel surrendered to the sensations flooding his mind and body. He felt the warmth of the Oran women surrounding him, that energy intertwining with his own. It was a mixture of compassion, strength, and a palpable longing, a yearning for balance and survival. As the chanting grew louder, the crystal pulsed in sync with the rhythm of their voices, creating a harmonious symphony that echoed through the village and beyond. Visions began to flash before Daniel's eyes, vivid images of the Oran's past. He saw their ancestors dancing around the very crystal that now pulsed at their feet, their laughter mingling with the music of nature. They shared bonds with the men of their tribe, who brought strength and energy, their connection fueling the very essence of the crystal. He witnessed ceremonies of unity, where energy flowed freely between partners, illuminating the night with the brilliance of shared life force. But then the visions shifted, darkening as he saw the moment the men began to flee. Fear and confusion spread like wildfire, their faces twisted in panic as they abandoned their home, leaving the Oran women to grapple with a reality that would soon spiral into despair. The energy of the crystal dimmed in his vision, flickering weakly as the bond that sustained it was severed. Daniel felt a pang of sorrow for the Oran people, understanding the depth of their loss. He had arrived on this planet as a solitary figure, but in that moment he felt deeply connected to their plight. They were not just alien women, they were beings of remarkable strength, resilience, and beauty. They were a culture that had thrived in harmony with their environment, and he was determined to help them restore what had been lost. Feel the energy. Inta's voice rang through his consciousness, grounding him as the visions began to swirl again. Embrace it. Let it flow through you. With her encouragement, Daniel opened his eyes to the spectacle unfolding around him. The women danced with abandon, their movements fluid and enchanting, every gesture resonating with the essence of their collective strength. The crystal was now ablaze with light, casting vibrant hues across the village, illuminating the faces of the Oran who had gathered to witness the ritual. As he looked around, Daniel saw the hope shining in their eyes. They were united in purpose, each woman channeling her energy into the crystal, their spirits intertwined in a dance that was both ancient and vital. He felt a spark of determination ignite within him, and he began to move with them, drawn into the rhythm of their celebration. Together, Daniel shouted, letting the energy pulse through him, feeling the power of the collective surge. He joined in the dance, imitating their movements, allowing the energy to guide him. Laughter erupted among the Oran as they welcomed him into their fold, the atmosphere charged with a sense of joy and camaraderie. The dance became more than just a ritual. It was a communion of souls, a testament to the strength of unity in the face of adversity. Daniel felt himself shifting from an outsider to an integral part of this vibrant community. As the energy swelled, he could almost taste the electricity in the air, the connection binding them all together. But as the dance continued, Daniel sensed a change in the energy. It began to pulse more erratically, the once harmonious rhythm becoming discordant. The crystal flickered ominously, and a chill swept through the crowd. Inta, sensing the disturbance, stepped closer to Daniel, her expression turning serious. "We must focus," she said urgently. "We cannot allow fear to disrupt the flow." "What's happening?" Daniel asked, concern etching lines on his forehead. Inta took a deep breath, her eyes shimmering with determination. "The energy we share is powerful, but it can be overwhelming. We must harness it properly or risk losing everything." As the Oran women gathered closer, Daniel felt their collective energy coalesce around him. He closed his eyes again, centering himself as Inta led the women in a new chant, one that emphasized unity and purpose. The words flowed like a river, strong and steady, drowning out the chaos that threatened to overwhelm them. Daniel felt a warmth envelop him, a cocoon of light that held back the darkness encroaching on their ritual. He concentrated on the pulsating crystal, visualizing its energy flowing freely and harmoniously. The flickering began to stabilize as he focused on his connection with Inta and the other women, feeling their strength surge through him. "Together," Daniel shouted again, his voice ringing out as a rallying cry. "We are stronger together." The Oran women responded with renewed vigor, their voices rising in a harmonious crescendo that filled the night air. The crystal glowed brighter, its light expanding to fill the square, pushing back against the shadows that threatened to engulf them. Daniel felt the energy shift again, a powerful wave washing over him as their combined strength surged. In a moment of clarity, he understood the essence of their bond. It was not just a matter of survival. It was about connection, trust, and the beauty of shared energy. With each pulse of the crystal, he could feel the collective heartbeat of the Oran women, their lives intertwined with his own in a dance of hope and resilience. As the energy swelled, the crystal erupted in a brilliant display of light, sending beams shooting into the night sky. It was as if the very fabric of their reality was being woven anew, the colors shimmering and shifting in an awe-inspiring spectacle. Daniel stood at the center of it all, feeling the rush of power course through him, a beacon of life and light. The ritual culminated in an explosion of energy that seemed to reverberate through the very ground beneath them. Daniel felt himself lifted, a sensation of weightlessness as he surrendered to the flow. The crystal pulsed in perfect harmony with the all-round women, and in that moment he realized he was not just a visitor, he was part of their legacy. As the light began to fade, Daniel found himself back in the village square, surrounded by the Oran women, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the crystal. The air felt charged with a newfound energy, a palpable sense of hope that hung in the atmosphere. Intel approached him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You did it, Daniel. You helped us restore the crystal's energy." Together, Daniel corrected her, still breathless from the intensity of the experience. "We did this together." The Oran women erupted into cheers, their laughter ringing out like music in the night. They embraced one another, their joy infectious, and Daniel felt a swell of pride and belonging. This alien world, once so foreign and daunting, had become a place of connection and understanding. But amidst the celebration, a thought nagged at the back of his mind. The crystal may have been revived, but the threat of imbalance still loomed over them. The exodus of men had left a void that could not be easily filled, and Daniel knew their journey was far from over. "We still need to talk about what happens next," Daniel said, stepping forward to address the gathered crowd. "This energy is powerful, but we need to ensure that it can be sustained. We can't let fear drive the men away again." Inta nodded, her expression serious. "You are right. We must find a way to restore the balance, to bring back the connection that sustains us. It won't be easy, but with your help, we can navigate this challenge." Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey ahead would require creativity and determination, but he was ready to stand beside the Oran women. He had found a place among them, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Let's begin by discussing how we can reach out to the men," Daniel suggested, rallying the group. "We need to understand their fears and find a way to bring them back into the fold." With that, the celebration began to take on a new focus. The Oran women gathered around him, each sharing their thoughts and ideas as they began to plan their next steps. Daniel felt invigorated by the discussions, the energy of the village buzzing with potential. As the night wore on, Daniel and Inta shared ideas, drawing upon the strengths of their respective cultures. They explored ways to rebuild the bonds that had been severed, emphasizing the importance of trust and understanding. Daniel felt a sense of belonging he had never anticipated. He was no longer just a human lost on an alien world. He was part of a community, bound by a common goal. And with that realization came a sense of hope, a hope that they could bridge the gap between their worlds and forge a future that was brighter for everyone. A journey to the unknown. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden rays of light across the Oran village, Daniel awoke to the sounds of nature stirring around him. The air was fresh and crisp, filled with the earthy scent of the bioluminescent plants that surrounded his makeshift sleeping area. He had slept soundly, the events of the previous night still swirling in his mind like a vivid dream. But this was no dream. It was his new reality, and he was determined to make the most of it. Daniel rose to find the village already bustling with activity. Oran women moved gracefully through the soft morning light, tending to the crystal and preparing for the day ahead. The air was filled with the melodic sounds of laughter and chatter, a symphony of life that brought a smile to his face. He felt invigorated, ready to dive into the next phase of their journey. After a quick breakfast made from the vibrant fruits of the alien flora, Daniel met with Inta at the base of the central crystal, which still glowed softly from the energy they had restored. "Good morning, Daniel," she greeted him, her blue skin shimmering in the sunlight. "Are you ready for what lies ahead?" "I am," he replied, feeling a thrill of anticipation. "We need to figure out how to reconnect with the men and show them that they are not alone. It's time we bridge the gap that has formed." Inta nodded, her expression serious yet determined. You've sparked hope in our people, and I believe together we can do the same for the men. But it will require a deep understanding of their fears and motivations. Daniel's mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps we can use the crystal as a beacon of hope. If we could amplify its energy and create a signal that reaches them, we might draw them back here. That's a brilliant idea, Inter exclaimed, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. The crystal can serve as a guide, but we must gather the necessary components to enhance its signal. There are sacred sites scattered across the planet that can help us harness and amplify its energy. Sacred sites? Daniel asked, intrigued. What do you mean? The Oran have always had a deep connection to the land. There are locations of great power, each with its own unique properties. If we can access these sites, we may be able to channel their energy back to the crystal. Sounds like an adventure, Daniel said, a smile creeping onto his face. Let's do it. As they prepared for their journey, Daniel and Inter gathered a small group of trusted Oran women to accompany them. Each woman possessed unique skills that would be vital for their expedition. They loaded their packs with essential supplies, including nourishing foods and tools necessary for the journey. Daniel felt a sense of camaraderie building among the group as they set out into the bioluminescent forest. The path they took wound through the vibrant landscape, the flora around them glowing softly as they walked. Daniel marveled at the beauty of the alien world, the colors more vivid than anything he had ever seen on Earth. The Oran women moved with an elegance that seemed inherent to them, and he found himself captivated by their grace. As they trekked deeper into the forest, Daniel felt the energy of the land shift. The air became charged with a unique vibrancy, and he could sense the pulse of life surrounding them. What makes these sacred sites so powerful? He asked Inter as they walked. They are places where the energy of the planet converges, she explained. Each site has its own history and significance to our people. The energy there is amplified, allowing us to tap into it and strengthen our connection to the crystal. After a few hours of walking, they arrived at the first sacred site, a stunning clearing surrounded by towering luminescent trees. At its center was a large stone structure covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shimmer in the light. Daniel could feel the energy emanating from the stones, a hum that resonated within him. This is a heart stone, Inter said, her voice reverent. It is said to embody the spirit of our ancestors and the essence of our tribe. We must perform a ceremony here to honor the energy and draw it into our own. Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. What do we need to do? Inter gestured for the group to gather around the heart stone. We will chant and dance, just as we did last night, to awaken the energy within the stone. It will require your presence as well, Daniel. Your connection to the crystal and the Oran will amplify our efforts. As they began the ceremony, Daniel felt the energy of the heart stone envelop him. The Oran women danced gracefully around the stone, their movements fluid and enchanting, echoing the rhythms of nature. Daniel joined them, allowing the energy to flow through him, becoming part of the ritual. The air grew thick with power, the vibrations of their voices harmonizing with the heartbeat of the heart stone. Daniel closed his eyes, focusing on the energy that surged around him. He visualized the crystal at the village, glowing brighter and brighter, sending out waves of energy to reach the men who had fled. In that moment, he felt a profound connection to the Oran women, their hopes and dreams intertwining with his own. The energy swirled around them, igniting a fire within his spirit. He knew that this was only the beginning. They were forging a new path together. As the ritual reached its crescendo, the heartstone pulsed with light, and Daniel could feel the energy flowing into him. It was a rush unlike anything he had experienced before, a fusion of life and spirit that filled him with purpose. He opened his eyes and looked at Inter, who was beaming with pride and joy. "We did it," she exclaimed, breathless from the dance. "The heartstone's energy is now part of us, and we can carry it back to the crystal." Daniel felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. This is just the first step. We need to keep moving and gather more energy from the other sacred sites. With renewed determination, the group set off again, visiting more sacred sites across the stunning alien landscape. Each site offered its own unique energy and history, and Daniel felt himself growing more connected to the Orang culture with every step. They performed rituals, danced, and shared stories, forging bonds that went beyond mere friendship. The second site they visited was known as the Whispering Grove, where ancient trees stood tall and proud, their leaves shimmering in the gentle breeze. As they gathered in the grove, Daniel could hear the soft whispers of the wind through the leaves, a soothing sound that filled him with peace. "Here, we connect with the voices of our ancestors," Intel explained. "They guide us and lend us strength." The Orang women closed their eyes, listening intently to the whispers that floated through the air. Daniel joined them, feeling the energy of the grove surround him. It was a calming presence, one that reminded him of the connection he had with his own ancestors back on Earth. The women began to chant softly, their voices intertwining with the whispers of the grove. Daniel felt the energy rising once more, and he allowed himself to be swept up in the moment. He could sense the spirit of the grove wrapping around him, filling him with hope and determination. As the ceremony came to an end, Daniel opened his eyes to find the women smiling at him, their faces glowing with excitement. "We have gathered strength from this place," Inta said, her eyes sparkling. "With every sight, we grow closer to our goal." The group pressed on, each sacred site deepening their connection to one another and the planet. As they journeyed, Daniel found himself reflecting on the profound transformation he was undergoing. What had started as a desperate crash landing had evolved into a mission that intertwined his fate with that of the Orang people. He felt like a part of their story, and it filled him with a sense of purpose he had never known before. Days turned into weeks as they continued their quest, gathering energy and knowledge from each sacred site. They visited the crystal caverns, where luminescent crystals hummed with energy, and the echoing falls, where cascading water reverberated with the songs of the Orang. With each experience, Daniel learned more about their culture, their history, and their incredible resilience. But as they journeyed, Daniel remained acutely aware of the looming challenge ahead. The longer they were away from the village, the more he worried about the men who had fled. Would they hear the call of the crystal? Would they be willing to return? One evening, as the group sat around a fire after a long day of travel, Daniel shared his concerns. "We've gathered so much energy, but what if the men are too afraid to come back?" Inter looked thoughtfully at the flames dancing before them. "Fear can be a powerful force, but so can hope. We need to find a way to communicate with them directly, to show them that we're here and that we need them." Daniel nodded, feeling a spark of inspiration. "Maybe we can use the crystal's energy to send a signal, something they can see from a distance. It would act as a beacon, guiding them back to us." The women murmured in agreement, the flickering firelight reflecting the determination in their eyes. They spent the rest of the night discussing plans and strategies, their resolve strengthening with each passing moment. As dawn broke, they made their way back to the village, carrying with them the energy of the sacred sites and the knowledge they had gained. Daniel could feel the anticipation building within him. They were on the cusp of something monumental. When they arrived at the village, the crystal pulsed with energy, a vibrant display of color that illuminated the square. Daniel's heart raced at the sight, knowing that they were ready to take the next step. They gathered the Orang women together, sharing the knowledge and energy they had gathered along their journey. "We have the power to create a signal," Daniel announced, addressing the crowd. "A beacon that will guide the men back to us. We will show them that we need them, that they are not alone." The women cheered, their spirits lifted by the prospect of reconnecting with the men. Together, they formed a circle around the crystal, each woman channeling her energy into it. Daniel stood at the forefront, feeling the pulse of the crystal beneath his feet, the energy thrumming through his body. As they began the ritual to amplify the crystal's energy, Daniel closed his eyes and visualized the beacon reaching out into the cosmos. He imagined it as a bright, pulsating light that would cut through the darkness, guiding the lost men back to their home. Together, Inta shouted, her voice ringing out with authority, "We will call them home." The energy surged, and Daniel felt the crystal respond, its light intensifying until it became a blinding beacon that shot into the sky. They watched in awe as the light split the night, illuminating the landscape for miles around. In that moment, Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of hope. The signal would reach them, he was sure of it. They had worked tirelessly to restore the Auron's connection to the crystal, and now it was time to see if their efforts would bear fruit. As the light pulsed in the sky, Daniel held his breath, waiting for a response. Would the men see it? Would they feel the call to return? The air was thick with anticipation, and as the minutes ticked by, Daniel felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He exchanged glances with Inta, who stood beside him, her expression a blend of hope and uncertainty. Then, just as he was beginning to doubt, a distant light flickered on the horizon, growing brighter with each passing moment. Daniel's heart raced as he realized what it was, a ship, gliding through the atmosphere toward them. "They're coming," he shouted, joy bursting within him. The crowd erupted into cheers, the sound echoing through the village as they watched the approaching vessel with bated breath. As the ship descended, Daniel felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had done it. They had called the men back home. This was not just a victory for the Auron, it was a victory for everyone who had ever felt lost and alone. The ship landed with a soft thud, and as the hatch opened, a group of men emerged, their expressions a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Daniel's heart soared as he recognized some of them. They were the very men who had fled, now returning to face the unknown. Inta stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "Welcome home," she said, her voice filled with warmth and sincerity. The men exchanged glances, uncertainty lingering in the air. But as they approached, Daniel stepped forward to meet them. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. We've restored the crystal's energy, and we need you. We need each other." With those words, the tension began to dissolve. The men hesitated for a moment before stepping into the circle, their apprehensions slowly giving way to the warmth of community. Together, they began to bridge the gap that had formed between their worlds, creating a tapestry of connection that would carry them into the future. Daniel felt a profound sense of belonging wash over him, knowing that they were no longer divided. As the sun set on that fateful day, Daniel stood among the Auron and the returning men, united by purpose and resilience. The beacon of hope they had created shone brightly, illuminating the path forward. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, forging a new chapter in their shared story, a story of strength, unity, and the unbreakable bonds of connection. A new beginning. With the return of the men, the village buzzed with renewed energy and excitement, transforming the atmosphere into one of celebration and tentative hope. It felt as if a long-lost part of their community had finally come home. Daniel watched as the Auron women and the men exchanged cautious glances, slowly breaking the barriers that had kept them apart for so long. The palpable tension of the past was still present, but it was intertwined with a sense of possibility that electrified the air. Inta stood beside him, her expression filled with determination as she surveyed the scene. "This is what we needed," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "A chance to rebuild our community and restore balance." Daniel nodded, feeling the warmth of her presence beside him. "But it will take time," he cautioned, recognizing the complexities of human emotions. "We need to address their fears and concerns. It won't be easy, but I believe we can do it together." As the men began to mingle with the Auron women, Daniel felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. They were making an effort to connect, and he knew that was a vital first step. He turned to Inta, who was watching the interactions with keen interest. "What do you think their first thoughts are?" Inta pondered for a moment, her brow furrowed in contemplation. "Fear, mostly. Fear of being drained of their energy again, fear of rejection, and fear of the unknown. We must be open and honest with them if we want to build trust." "That makes sense," Daniel replied, feeling a weight settle in his chest. "Let's create an environment where they can voice their concerns. Maybe a gathering tonight to talk things through." "That's a great idea," Inta said, her eyes lighting up. "We can use the central crystal as a focal point. It represents our collective strength and hope." With a plan in place, Daniel and Inta began to help organize the gathering. They worked together, drawing the men and women into discussions about what had happened, sharing stories of the past few weeks, the trials they had faced, the energy they had gathered, and the powerful connection they had created. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the village, the central square began to fill with villagers eager to participate in the evening's gathering. Daniel felt a surge of nervousness as he prepared to address the crowd. This was a crucial moment, and he wanted to ensure that everyone felt welcomed and understood. When the time came, he stepped forward, clearing his throat to capture everyone's attention. The gathered crowd quieted, their eyes fixed on him. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady. "This is a time for us to come together, to share our thoughts and feelings openly. We faced many challenges, and I know that there are fears and uncertainties on both sides." He gestured to the Oran women, who stood proudly by his side. "But I want to emphasize that we are stronger together. The crystal has been restored, and with it, our hope. Let's take this opportunity to discuss how we can move forward as one community." Daniel watched as the men exchanged glances, and he could see the apprehension written on their faces. He continued, "I understand that you may have fears about returning to this village, about what it means to reconnect with the Oran. But I assure you, the Oran women are not here to drain you of your energy. They are here to create a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding." Inta stepped forward, her voice carrying a melodic tone that resonated with the crowd. "You are not alone. We have all suffered from the separation, and it's time to heal. Let us share our experiences, our fears, and our hopes for the future. Together, we can forge a new path." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. Slowly, a man stepped forward, his posture tense but resolute. "I want to speak," he said, his voice firm yet hesitant. "Please," Daniel encouraged, gesturing for him to continue. "I am Callan," the man said, glancing at his fellow men before focusing on the gathered Oran. "I fled when I felt overwhelmed. I was scared. The idea of being drained was terrifying, and I didn't understand what you needed. I thought I was protecting myself." Inta nodded, her expression empathetic. "Your fears are valid, Callan. We understand that this has been a tumultuous experience for you all. It was not just a loss of energy, it was a loss of connection. We want to rebuild that connection, but it requires trust." Another man stepped forward, his brow furrowed in thought. "What if we don't want to return to that lifestyle? What if we can't share ourselves in that way again?" Daniel took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "It's not about forcing anyone to change. This is about finding a balance that respects everyone's needs and boundaries. We can create a new way of life together that honors both the Oran and the men." As the conversation unfolded, more people began to voice their concerns. Women spoke of their fears of being left alone again, and men shared their worries about feeling inadequate. Each story wove a complex tapestry of emotions: fear, hope, confusion, and the desire for connection. Daniel and Inta listened attentively, validating each experience and encouraging open dialogue. As the night wore on, the atmosphere shifted from one of apprehension to a sense of community. They began to see that they were not alone in their struggles. They were all facing the unknown together. Gradually, the energy in the square transformed, filled with a sense of solidarity. They laughed, shared stories, and found common ground in their experiences. It was clear that the walls of fear were beginning to crumble, allowing a new foundation of trust to take root. As the gathering drew to a close, Daniel felt a surge of optimism. "Let's continue these conversations. We have the potential to create something beautiful together," he urged. "Let's find ways to engage, to share our strengths, and to learn from one another. I believe that through patience and understanding, we can forge a new path forward." The crowd erupted into applause, a wave of enthusiasm washing over them. Inta looked at Daniel, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You have a gift for bringing people together, Daniel. This is just the beginning." As the crowd began to disperse, Daniel felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. They had taken significant steps toward healing the rift between their cultures, and he was excited to see what the future held. In the following days, the village buzzed with activity. The men and women worked side by side, repairing homes, tending to the crystal, and sharing their knowledge. The Oran taught the men about their customs and traditions, while the men shared their skills and experiences from the outside world. Daniel felt a sense of pride as he watched the community grow closer. They were not just healing the past, they were building a new future together, one where both Oran and human cultures could thrive in harmony. As time went on, they developed new rituals that honored both the Oran connection to the crystal and the men's desire for autonomy. They held communal gatherings filled with music, laughter, and storytelling, creating a vibrant tapestry of culture that blended the best of both worlds. One evening, as they gathered around the crystal, Daniel stood beside Inta, his heart swelling with joy. The crystal pulsed gently, radiating warmth as they prepared for another celebration. "We've come so far," Inta said, her voice filled with emotion. "You've helped bridge the gap between our peoples, Daniel. I can't imagine where we would be without you." "I couldn't have done it without you and the Oran," he replied, feeling the warmth of her hand resting on his. "This is all of us together." As they shared stories and laughter with the villagers, Daniel felt a profound sense of belonging. He was no longer just a lost explorer on an alien planet. He had found a home among the Oran. The barriers that once divided them had crumbled, replaced by a shared vision for the future. As the celebration continued into the night, Daniel looked around at the faces of his friends, both human and Oran. They were no longer strangers. They were a community united by their struggles, triumphs, and dreams. In that moment, Daniel realized that true strength lay in connection, in the bonds formed through empathy and understanding. Together, they would continue to navigate the challenges ahead, forging a path of hope that would light the way for generations to come.